folks. We are back. This is Fresh Juice, an indie game podcast where we review all of your possibly favorite indie games coming out on the daily or weekly, whatever. I am one of your hosts, Tommy Fresh, and joined as always is
Matty Juice. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's great to have you here in episode 6, rolling into an interesting genre this week that we're going to be covering with the game review. But before we get into that, Tommy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm pretty excited to talk about this game. It's definitely we're pretty early into the podcast, but a little bit of a departure from the stuff we've been doing. Maybe a little similarities to Pizza Possum in a way, in terms of the best way to play it. But I'm doing well. It's been a long day. I woke up pretty early to drive out to Hershey, Pennsylvania, where I work. For a sales meeting. It's like 2 hours for me. And, they like to really take advantage of the sales team being out at the brewery for a meeting. And one of the ways they like to do that is, while they have the meeting, we all get to kind of talk together and, see each other and talk about what's going on in our markets and this and that. And then they also like to say, hey, we're short-staffed and we need you guys to package about 1,300 cases of beer.
Oh my God.
So after our meeting was done, they were like, all right, let's go down, get some safety glasses and get to work. So we didn't package the actual beer. We had to set up the boxes because the certain beer that was going in these boxes is Cork and Cage, which is a different bottling line from our normal bottling line that's totally automated. So this one has to be packed by hand, which is very tough, but it doesn't happen that often. But of course, when we're out there, it was happening. So we had to they come in 4-packs. We basically had to pop open the box that you would see, like the case box, and then also pop open all the 4-packs and put them into the boxes and then like stack them on pallets and stuff like that. We did about like 1,300 cases today.
Oh my God.
That's 6 4-packs per case, which is it was a lot. So,
And how many of there were you? How big was the sales team?
Oh, it's not a quarterly meeting, so we didn't have everybody from every market, but we probably had about 10 or 12 folks kind of working. This is not too bad.
Still, that's like 120, 130 per person.
Yeah.
Which like
we split up the work. Some of us were popping open the 4-packs, the other people were putting them into the boxes. It ended up being okay. We did some before lunch and then a little bit after lunch. But man, it is interesting. And I found out that, the joke is, so I work at a brewery. When the sales team's out there, we're kind of just like, just hanging up in the office and whatever. We're just kind of bullshitting, and all the production team like looks at us just like hanging out, just drinking beers and stuff like that. And they're just like, whatever. And we found out that they call us carpet walkers. Which is fair. I get it.
What does that even mean, though?
It means that we don't do like
you walk on carpet.
Yeah, we don't do like the hard work that they do on the production team, and they certainly do.
Walking on the hardwood, I guess.
Yeah. So like we have the easy streets, but my response to them would be you try getting screamed at by a liquor store owner, in the middle of the day. And have to like reevaluate your life and move on to the next account. But it was fun, I guess, kind of. But the cool thing is, the cool thing about my company, and you won't see this at a lot of breweries the same size as the company I work for. One of the owners was right there with us packing these boxes. So
cool.
you don't see that. That's like really cool. So you're just kind of like doing it and chatting and stuff like that. So that was pretty neat. But that's been my day, and my weekend was good. I played a tournament in Flesh and Blood. We went to a Halloween party. That was fun. And I think that's pretty much it. And then pretty low key Sunday, I think. What about you?
Nice. Yeah. Went to the Halloween party. I've been doing pretty well overall. Got to see my Eagles beat the Cowboys yesterday, so that was fun. Always a good time. Sorry to any Cowboys fans listening, but if you are listening, I hate you. No, but so that was good. And yeah, I got a short work week this week because me and Maria are heading up to the Poconos, so that should be fun. There's actually like up there. There's a really cool like old school movie theater. But it's like they show like two movies. It's like the old school movie theater seats and everything, and like it's like attached to like an ice cream shop that they also own and a mini golf. And I forget. I think it's called like Casino Theater or something like that. And we recently found out that they were like we've been going there for years. Every time we go up there because it's just so cool. And the owners were retiring. So that's happened with a few places up there where like they closed because the owners are retiring. But luckily for this place, they are selling it to like someone else it was gonna like continue keep doing like the same stuff. So I don't know if it's gonna be open when we go up there, but I hope it is because it's one of my favorite parts of like going up to the Poconos. It's like stepping back in time a little bit. And it's just very nostalgic ish for me, especially just how many movies we saw growing up, like these big red fancy seats were never a thing, like I used to hurt my back if you sat too close to the movie, and my neck or whatever. So it's just cool, like going back in time there. So I'm excited for that if it is open, but yeah, no, other than that, nothing too crazy going on. Just happy to kind of getting into the holiday season now, so it kind of makes work a little bit easier for me, and it's nice, but yeah, that's the update. That's the Matty Juice update right there.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. That movie theater sounds awesome. It actually reminds me. So when we went out to Kentucky, we stopped in Pittsburgh and we went to a card shop called Green Tree Sports Cards, and the owner there, John, he's awesome. He really understands like how to build like a community for like trading card games and stuff like that. But he was talking to me, last time I saw him, that he found like a venue for a tournament for him to run where basically it's like set up for like esports, right? But it's like on one floor, it's like an esports, like you can run a card tournament or whatever. It has like a great setup, and it also has a lot of, I guess, infrastructure for streaming and stuff like that. And downstairs, apparently, there's like it's like a movie theater. And
oh, cool.
What he told me he would plan on doing was having the tournament, having the feature matches filmed upstairs, and anybody who wanted to just watch it, like obviously it'd be on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that, but anybody who wanted to watch it could just go downstairs to the movie theater part and watch the feature match while it's happening live, which is pretty sweet. So
yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
but that'd be a really. I mean, I wonder if because you said it's like a venue that you rent out, right? So I wonder if that's happened before with other games, maybe.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. No, that'd be awesome. I would even I don't even know anything about Flesh and Blood really, and I would want to go. Just be like, oh my god, this is all like maybe you would compete.
Maybe.
Yeah, and we'll be there cheering you on from the bottom floor.
Hear you through the floorboards. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's pretty awesome. But we do have some news, and actually, the first bit of news ties into movie theaters in a way.
Yeah.
So the dev of a game that we've talked about already, Stardew Valley, which is I think arguably it might be one of the biggest still super indie games that people still play, still gets updates, and people look forward to stuff. We even talked about it, the music going on tour, like it's pretty incredible. Now, in the wake of all these video game movies coming out, Five Nights at Freddy's and Super Mario this past year, he was asked in an interview if and his name is Eric Concerned Ape. People know him as Concerned Ape. Eric Barone. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They asked, like, would you ever do that? Would you ever like kind of like give away your IP for like the movie rights? And he was very no, absolutely not. But he gave two exceptions, and the first exception was if Studio Ghibli came to him. Now, if you don't know Studio Ghibli, famous for Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, and a ton of other movies. All these anime movies that are top tier and some of the best, well revered and loved. And it totally fits the vibe of Stardew Valley. So I understand that. But the other interesting thing was he'd be interested to see David Lynch do his take on Stardew Valley. Now, David Lynch, if you don't know, directed Eraserhead. He directed the original Dune in the 80s, which was like not good, but super weird and whatever. But David Lynch, David Lynch is also famous for Twin Peaks, the television show.
Yep.
Super avant-garde, weird kind of approach to film, and just like whenever it always feels like some kind of dream sequence. So it's funny that Concerned Ape was like, yeah, either this one thing that makes a lot of sense, Studio Ghibli, or David Lynch. I want to see how wacky and crazy he could make my farming simulator as a movie. So I don't know. Are you familiar with either Studio Ghibli or David Lynch?
I'm familiar with them, but I can't say that I know a lot of their work. I've seen Studio Ghibli like all over the place. I'm just not super into anime. So I just don't, I'm not kind of on that side of the internet, I guess you could say, but I do see that name pop up like in comments and all that sort of stuff. And then I know Twin Peaks and David Lynch, but I've never watched Twin Peaks, but that's probably the thing I would know from him the most. But yeah, I'm not 100% familiar with them, but I do I can understand like how Stardew Valley could be translated into one and into another, just knowing what I know. Yeah, it's definitely really interesting. You know, I think it's funny because I also feel like Stardew Valley is one of those games that's like so chill that like there's not a lot of like, you know, ups and downs or like, you know, really strong plot points, I feel like. So I feel like that also opens up, you know, if they were going to do a movie, there's a lot of freedom there probably, but I feel like it would still need to kind of have that calm, relaxing feeling, which who knows if that would work for an entire movie. You know, there's got to be I feel like some, you know, some things that don't go their way or whatever it is. But I don't know enough about the Stardew Valley story, though. Maybe there is more to the lore that I'm just not sure of. But from what I know, it's you, right? You like are just trying to build up your farm, and there's like villagers and things like that, right? So I don't know how deep it gets, but maybe you have a better idea of that.
Well, you know, there's like a lot of like side quests and quests that you have to like, you know, interact with the villagers, the NPCs and stuff like that. And, you know, there are relationships that maybe get built or kind of fade away throughout the game. So there's stuff there to definitely make a movie, but it's definitely very open-ended and could be, you know, interpreted in a lot of different ways. And I would, to be honest, I mean, I think it would probably make an excellent Studio Ghibli movie. From what I've seen from them, you know, it just makes sense. The wholesome, chill vibe. Maybe there's some stakes, you know, to kind of throw in there to make the plot move along. But I would be interested to see David Lynch take it on, because I feel like David Lynch would look at the NPCs and be like, these are going to act like NPCs in my movie too, and like make it almost like dystopian in a way. Like I got to build this farm, but people just say the same thing to me every time I talk to them and stuff like that, which would be kind of fun. Now, we didn't have much other news, but I did want to say that there was a game that I'd kept my eye on. I wish listed it. It finally came out. It's called Racine, Racine. It's something I'm probably going to play. We might not review it, but it's like an auto battler roguelite like card game, and it has this really, really neat kind of art style, very pixely, but Japanese, I guess, inspired, like feudal Japan, samurai inspired, very neat, like a lot of greens and like dark tones to kind of like balance out the pixel art. It seems very cool. It's on sale too if you want to check it out. Just came out today, the day we're recording, which is November 6th, and I think the sale's going on for a week or so. It's only like $8 or $9 or something like that. So I'm gonna check it out for sure. Something that popped up and something that I've been kind of keeping my eye on because I saw the trailer for it like months ago, and it said 2023, and these games say that, and you're just like, when in 2023? And then all of a sudden it's like they'll just have a release date and they'll publish that like a week before it happens. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw this in the show notes. We discussed a little bit about it before we went live and or started recording, I should say. But yeah, this game, it looks really cool. Like I'm even like considering picking it up. I've never even heard of it either. So kind of like to your point, I feel like a lot of these indie games kind of like stealth drop.
Yeah.
Whether they mean to or not, it's like they stealth drop. But yeah, so far it's got positive reviews, got 13 reviews on Steam. And it's kind of one of those things where like we talked about, with Leica last week, how it's so cool when they like blend different genres together. And I feel like kind of deck building has been blended with like so many things. And I feel like most of the time it does work really well. Like I haven't really, I can't really think of one where like I just felt like it was too much. But this just seems really cool. Yeah, I love the art style. It's like simplistic, but also kind of has like a little depth to it. I'm just like kind of like almost like layers of overlays or just of art in general. It just definitely seems really cool. Kind of reminds me of Dead Cells a little bit in terms of like the backgrounds, things like that. But yeah, it does look really cool. Like I'm just looking at like some of the skill trees, or this is like maybe there's like some sort of Mario type of like world you go in where you choose your level, something like that. So it seems like it's trying a few different things, which is just really cool. And yeah, it's on sale for $9 right now. So it's like, why not? Pick it up, see if it's good. And yeah, there's even people streaming it right now. I can see on Steam. So it looks pretty sweet. I did not know about this. And how did you find out about this? Just curious.
Instagram ad.
Really, an Instagram ad? Wow.
So the studio right. Goblins Studio, which has made some other games that I've actually played, Heroes Hour being one of them, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I don't know, it really caught me with it. Sometimes these Instagram ads, man, they just catch you. You're just like, I've ordered like shirts and hats from Instagram. It's like, they got me again. But I like the stuff. So, I was willing to kind of like follow this one a little bit and see what happens. I don't know. I'm interested. I'm going to play it, and hell, we could be teasing a future Rec Room, here with Racine, or we'll never talk about it again if it's really bad. So you never know. You never know. But that does get us to the main squeeze, the Squeeze-a-reno, where we're going to talk about the game that we are reviewing this week, which is Bish Bash Bots.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. This is a game from Firestoke and Catastrophic Overload, which, out of Scotland, it seems.
Scotland.
The, this is a little bit of an aside, but I was talking to some buds on Discord, and I had posted a picture of a scotch I was drinking, and, one of the buds was like, I don't really like peat, which is like a strong flavor in a lot of scotch. And I was like, I love it. It reminds me of the old country. And then it reminded me of the scene with Chris Farley in Coneheads where he's on a date with the daughter. And he's like, my grandpa, he's from the old country. She's like, oh, which one? He's like, I don't really know. One of the big ones. It's just such a great line. But Scotland, the old country. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the elevator pitch for Bish Bash Bots?
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to bish bash it up. Starting off, platforms that it's on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. It starts at $20. Well, it is $20 and it started at $20, but it's $20 on all those platforms. And essentially what it is, it's a co-op tower defense game. So it's it has that kind of party game feel as well when you're playing co-op. And yeah, that's really what it is. Kind of the elevator pitch for the setting is that you're in kind of the future, and these robots you have created sort of turn against you, and so that's kind of the waves of enemies that you're getting in that tower defense, and you're trying to build things, obviously, to have them not get to the end and destroy the thing at the end, essentially. So that's really kind of dumbing it down. But yeah, you can play with up to 4 players. We only played 2, but you can play up to 4, which is really cool. I don't know if all tower defense games kind of have that, but definitely really cool that this one does. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It is a very simple game, I would say, elevator pitch wise, compared to some of the other stuff that we've played. But yeah.
Certainly, and it does blend some of the, we'll get into the gameplay right now. Why the hell not? It's our show. We'll do what we want. Let's talk about the gameplay, right? It is one of these games that does blend some genres, which we talked about last week. We just mentioned with Racine and Leica. And the genres here are co-op, like couch co-op in a way. Now, we played on Steam. We will say we did get keys for this game, but we're still going to give you a totally non-biased review. They don't expect us to do anything less. But we played on Steam and it was fun. We were just on Discord. We were playing together, and basically the genre is tower defense. I played a decent amount of tower defenses in my day. They don't typically be co-op or not co-op like this. Typically, you're just playing by yourself and throwing the towers wherever and trying to upgrade them and whatnot. And the other thing that this is bringing to the table in terms of the co-op, it's not just placing towers. A lot of tower defense games are just like, oh, you're placing towers and you want to place them strategically in a way that will deal with the incoming enemies. But it's also somewhat of a brawler because your character that you're playing is running around the map, and you will have a hammer, and you have little, what do you call them?
Gadgets.
They call them gadgets.
Yeah. Abilities.
Sort of. Yeah, I think is probably the best word to use. And you got abilities and gadgets and power ups and stuff like that. So you're running around working together. You can try to kill the robots as they're coming. It's hard to. You really do need the towers. I will say, in terms of the gameplay, they really nailed the fact that no, this is still a tower defense game, because we played a couple times, and I played solo initially for like an hour or so, and I was like, okay, this is definitely meant for multiplayer. So we were like, all right, we'll find some time to play together. And there were times when we were like, all right, maybe we don't need to focus a ton on the towers, and we can kind of like put some really powerful ones down and just fight these robots. But that soon was proven to not be the right strategy. And you have a plethora of different kinds of robots that are coming in that have different abilities and different weaknesses and different towers that are good against them and stuff that will make it really hard. They come at different speeds and stuff like that, because there'll be points where a really fast one will come, a whole bunch of really fast ones will be panicking, because you got to run back and protect your EMP. Basically, your EMP is charging up from 0% to 100%, and you're protecting that. It has health, starts at 20 health, and each time a robot hits it, loses a health, so you don't want it to get hit 20 times. So you're just defending that, and you can try to push these things and smash them, or build these towers in a unique way. And every time you kill one of these robots, they drop these gears, which is basically your currency to create new towers. But yeah, that's the gameplay, really. I mean, that's all it is. You could go from level to level. It continues to get harder and harder, and it'll introduce different mechanics. It'll introduce different environmental ways the level will interact with the robots and yourself. There's a level in the second group of levels, because you start in suburbia, you move over to the jungle. So in the jungle, there's a level where there's a Venus flytrap that's underground, and if you're standing still for a certain amount of time, it'll come up and eat you. and then you got to like smash X or whatever to get out of it. But you can also trap a robot in that, which is pretty neat. So I thought the use of the environment was actually really, really cool and very unique. There are a ton of different towers you can build, which I thought was pretty neat. They all kind of do what you expect from tower defense stuff. Like, oh, this one shoots flying enemies. This one stuns the enemies. This one does like just straight like shooting your enemies like over and over again. This one does splash damage. This one is really good from a long distance. So that's just typical, right? Like I think you get that in every tower defense game, but what makes the game unique, I found, was the environmental interaction that you can do as a character running around, and the fact that you get to run around and do this. And sometimes you have to destroy things on the map to even be able to build a tower there, which was kind of neat. Some negatives I found in the gameplay was sometimes, so you can push these bots, and maybe it's part of the challenge of the game, but I found it to be a little counterintuitive. Like sometimes if you were like chasing a bot, you would accidentally like push him closer to the EMP, which ended up being very frustrating because there's like, you have goals at the end of the level. Like one of the goals might be like, don't take any damage, and you kind of want to get all the goals because I don't know, you're competitive, and that felt very frustrating at times. And outside of that, I didn't really have a lot of complaints. It's not a very deep game in terms of like really deep gameplay. I mean, sure, you can unlock new gadgets and kind of figure out how to use them, but you only get one gadget, and then your base character has one power up ability that charges up. And whether that's speeding up everybody in your team or making you upgrade towers faster, that's another thing. You can upgrade your towers by smashing it with a hammer, which is kind of cool. So that's basically it. That's the gameplay. I liked it. I thought it was fun. We played on Steam. I think I would really like to play it. Just switch. 4-player co-op seems like a lot of fun. 2-player was fun. 1-player, not really for me. I think you're better off playing another tower defense at that point. But once you get into the multiplayer world, in terms of the gameplay, I felt like it was a very fun game and not very, you could just sit down and play a level. And I felt like that was a big positive for it. But there are some mechanics that I disliked in terms of like how you push the bots and sometimes how the bots interact with you. But they can be challenging as well. And what are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, no, I think you're making a lot of good points. Starting out with like just some of the positives from the gameplay that I really liked, and you touched on it a bit there, where from what I know about other tower defense games, because I haven't played a ton of them. I played Bloons, and I played probably some on my phone because it's a very popular genre for like mobile games. It was cool to be like the player in the game rather than like someone that's just managing the traps kind of as you're playing. So I think that's probably what sets this one apart from other tower defense games that I've seen, is that you're actually playing a little character who has like abilities, and you're not just kind of, clicking on the map and setting up traps and just kind of having it run, and almost like a simulation kind of in a way. Not that there's anything wrong with those types of games. It's just for me, as someone that doesn't play a lot of tower defense, I thought that was cool. So that was great. And then, the fact that like it's also a brawler kind of, I would actually like them to see them like expand a little bit more on the brawling, like kind of what you mentioned. And I actually noted that down as well about like the pushing of the bots. Is that even there's an ability that you can get where you kind of put a dome around your character for a few seconds, and you can kind of push the bots away. Sometimes when I would do that, instead of them being, pushed the way that I was kind of facing, they would get, pushed behind me or to my side or whatever it would be. And it kind of just got like a little bit messy. So I ended up changing my ability from there. And I probably tried that one once, I think, the dome one. So yeah, that was definitely an issue. So I would like to see them like expand a little bit on the brawler side of things. Maybe there's a grab so that like you can grab someone for a few seconds, or maybe there is like if you are playing co-op, and they would have to figure out how you'd be able to do this in solo. But it'd be cool if we work together. Like maybe we can hit at the same time, and it does a different sort of attack, or it pushes them back even further because we work together. Like something like that could be cool. So yeah, I do get the frustrations with like the pushing, and luckily there were some of the courses that, or some of the levels that had like giant holes and pits, so you could kind of push them into there, which was nice. But it didn't really like you kind of start like licking your chops right when you see like a giant horde coming, and there's a pit right next to them, and you think that you're about to like hit more than half of them into the pit, and you only end up hitting like 4 or 5 of them, and there's still like 12 of them that are going right towards the EMP. So definitely with the pushing, and like you said, maybe that's like intended that they are kind of like that, and they're a little bit more sticky, rather than just being able to be pushed around. But it would be nice, at least for the lower level bots that you have to face, that if they were just easily pushable. So that was definitely one thing that's kind of a sort of a pro and a con. I do like the brawling aspect, but I want them to sort of expand on it a little bit more. But I did think that it kept it pretty fresh, and that's another thing too. Is I felt like every level that we played, it was introducing a new mechanic or a new environmental hazard or environmental tool for you to use. And it was, I know a lot of the tower defense games do that, but it felt like the progression there was pretty good. I never felt like one level, we had to kind of think of a different strategy almost for every level. And especially, some of them we would fail right away, or not right away, but we would fail at some point, and then we would figure out what to do. And then the second try, I'm pretty sure we would like always beat it. And we would beat it. We would like pretty much crush it,
Yeah.
like it just like we would figure it out. And like that was a rewarding feeling, being able to like figure that stuff out. I also really, I mean, I know I was talking about there being maybe some more brawling mechanics, but I enjoyed that it was mainly one button. So you hit A to jump, but other than that, you're hitting X for pretty much everything else in terms of like interactions. Like to use your abilities, it's like a different button. But as far as like using, like there's a crane on one of the levels where you can pick it up and drop stuff on the bots and kill them. You're using X to like pick up the box or whatever it is with the crane, or you're using X to get out of that kind of Venus flytrap. You're using it for pretty much everything, upgrading, all that sort of stuff. So it makes it really easy to learn. Like after like I don't know, a minute into the first level, I was like, okay, I know all the controls. Like I'm not confused at all. Which we've ran into those issues before with some of the other games we've reviewed, like Wizard with a Gun. To me, just too much going on there. But anyway, yeah. But overall, I did like that the gameplay was simple, and I like some of the new elements, like the brawling elements. I just really would like to see them expand on that more. And then the last thing, gameplay wise, I just haven't noted in gameplay here, but I really wish this was on mobile.
Yeah.
I know Switch is like as close as we're gonna get with the consoles with mobile, but like I think this game would be perfect on mobile, and I would be playing it more if it was on my phone. And I think it would work really well. So maybe that's in the works. I'm not too sure if the devs are listening. Maybe let us know. But yeah, that was just kind of the last thing in the gameplay front. But what do you want to talk about next, Tom? What was your next favorite part of this game?
Well, I do want to actually, what? You were talking about the brawling aspect and how you wish it kind of would expand. And that did remind me that there is something that I think felt like they could have done with the co-op brawling aspect, kind of like what you're saying, like, oh, hit something at the same time, right? And maybe and also you mentioned a grab. That might be a gadget that you unlock. We didn't unlock all the gadgets. That might be something you can unlock, but
sure. Yeah.
So one of our favorite games of all time is Gauntlet Dark Legacy. So in Gauntlet Dark Legacy, you have like a special attack. Once your meter gets to a certain point, it's very arcade style, a lot like this game. And you also have a meter that gets to a certain point. You get to use your special. There was, if you were playing with somebody, you could, in Gauntlet Dark Legacy, what instead of using your special, you go over to your co-op person and press a different button, and you both use your specials at the same time to do a combined special, which is a really cool. It's just like a very simple but really cool like thing that I think would have been really like beneficial for this game, right? Because there are points when like you use your special, it doesn't even it hardly felt like it mattered sometimes, right? Like you get like a nice little buff, like whether it's like give everybody better attack or you upgrade faster or whatever. But sometimes you just want to like do like a big bomb or something like that to like kind of like, all right, we need to like reset real quick so we can kind of get our shit together.
Sometimes you just want to dominate.
Yeah,
sometimes you just want to crush it. You just like just for a few seconds, you know?
Or even just like you just want to like hit a panic button sometimes. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Like you have two requirements, right? You both have to have full meters. And it's like that's your panic button, and you can only do it once a game or something like that, and I think that would be neat. But that's just hey, listen, we're just kind of like trying to design a game for them at that point. But the next thing I do want to talk about is story. Like most arcade games, the story is very one-dimensional. You start basically, it's like, hey, this world, super advanced. Nobody has to work, which is really cool because we have robots and AI and all this stuff. They kind of doing everything. And like any kind of story that starts out like that, the robots turn evil or whatever. And basically that's it. And you and your three friends or the group of 4 friends has to band together to go stop all these robots in these different parts of the world with these EMPs that they designed. And yeah, that's pretty much the story. You're in like your home base is like a flying van that's like a dirigible or something like that, and that's where you get to change your cosmetics and pick different gadgets and then pick your level, and that's the story. It's not much, but that being said, I don't think you need much, right? It sets the stage. It makes sense. It's like they could have just been like, "There's robots attacking, and you got to deal with it." No. They gave you a little bit of reason why the robots are attacking and what your plan is to do with it. And I think that's totally fine. I think it's you don't have to go crazy. And you get a little flavor. You get, each level you have this little ghost AI thing that kind of talks to you and kind of gives you the lowdown on each level, and you get a little bit of flavor with the I guess the talking back and forth between the characters. And that was fine. It was cute. And it's definitely not heavy in any kind of way. This is a little bit of a different side of the coin from last week's game. This is definitely happy-go-lucky and had very very early Sega vibes, Sega Genesis vibes or something like that. I think, and like of like the more family-oriented games.
Yeah, definitely. Studio Ghibli is going to be picking this one up for sure. I took a look at like what they had on their website in terms of like the story, because I was like, maybe there's more than what like is in the game, And no, it's pretty much exactly what you had said. It says like, in a distant future, humanity is thrown into chaos, and like robots that were designed to do tasks that humans no longer want to do begin to malfunction. And then you just you're armed with big hammers, and you just bash your way to victory to help restore the robots and make them do all the tasks you don't want to do. So it's kind of sad a little bit in a way, just like you're just these robots that were doing, I don't know, probably cleaning toilets, things like that. They don't want to do it anymore, and you just decide you're gonna hit them with hammers. And so they do what you want. It's crazy. No, but it's definitely not a lot of depth with the story, which we weren't expecting with like an arcade game like this. Similar, to kind of like Pizza Possum, right? It's like another arcade game that we reviewed, where there's not a lot of story, but you can kind of pick up on a few elements just from like the way it looks and a little bit of the dialogue. But yeah, I didn't have too much to say about the story. I'm not giving it really a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It kind of is what it is, you know. It does its job for a game like this. It just kind of sets the stage a little bit, but that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving on to the visual side and the graphics, what
Yeah.
were your thoughts there?
Yeah, I did like the graphics quite a bit. So there's kind of I kind of view it as like two different layers of graphics. You have like the in-game like 3D graphics, and then there was like the cutscenes that you kind of had a little bit where it was almost like anime-ish, like 2D. It kind of like the thing I thought of immediately was Chowder, like the Cartoon Network show or whatever. It kind of had similar like smiles to like people on that show. So that I thought that was well done. And then yeah, as far as like playing in the game, like the 3D elements, everything from like the robots and like there's the electric robots and the way the levels looked, I thought everything was pretty great. It definitely seems like a more modern tower defense game from like some, I'm just thinking of like the early Bloons games, because I know that's probably the most popular tower defense game, I would say. Um, so yeah, overall, I really did like the art, but it's nothing. Again, kind of like the gameplay. There's not a ton of depth to the art. You're not going to be blown away, I don't think, by anything. But it's overall, I thought it did the job for me. So, but curious to see what you think, Tommy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that it cute, very. I mentioned Sega before, right?
Yeah.
There a lot of this. I don't know for whatever reason, and it's going to come up again in our next topic as well. A lot of it reminded me of like Sonic Adventure Battle 2.
Yeah.
Right? The cutesiness of like the KOs or whatever, or the chows. I forget
The
what
chows.
Yeah.
The chows, Tom. Don't diss the
I'm
chows.
sorry. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I played that masterpiece of a game, and it was just very cute, easy on the eyes, like just like super fun to play. It matched the tone of the story and the gameplay, and it was neat, right? Like it felt very cartoony, and just like a classic, I don't know, like GameCube game or Sega Genesis or something. Not Genesis, Sega Dreamcast kind of feel to it, and it was nostalgic in that way, I think, and I felt like it definitely lent itself to the couch co-op kind of thing it had going on, and it was nice. I liked it quite a bit. It was just easy. I don't know. It wasn't breaking any ground, that's for sure. But in terms of a tower defense game, I thought it was great. I don't think there was really any complaints I had. Everything made sense in the way that you interact with it. Every item that you interact with. I like that the towers, as you kind of upgrade them, they change the way they look slightly until you max them out, and then they look like way different, which is really neat. It was nice. I think the visuals were great, and made sense for the game. But
yeah, no, definitely. Even like just thinking about like the kind of heads up display, right? Like the little graphics of like when you're building and there's like a little level icon above, whatever trap you're setting up, like that will change with the level as well as like changing the number of stars. So like there's all these kind of color cues as well of like what level a certain thing is. I will say, I don't know if this really falls into art or more gameplay, but I found myself sometimes not realizing that I had my ability, like it was done with its cooldown. So it would have maybe like just a little bit louder, I guess, not necessarily like volume wise, but maybe just like pop up like above my name or something, and just or above my character, and just be like ability ready or whatever it is. Because I just found like sometimes I was just like, oh, I forgot to use my ability. So like maybe I don't know if that's more in the art of the gameplay side, but like just being able to realize that your ability is ready, I think could be a good change for the game. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of your points. But now I know you're excited to talk about the sound and the music. right, Tommy? So
The
tell me,
Sound of
you already
Music.
teased it. Yes, you already you teased it a bit. So go ahead.
I
Let's hear it.
did. Well, right out the gate, you get this kind of like mid 2000s like guitar riffs, and it felt very Sonic Adventure Battle 2, which
Yeah.
is in no way, shape, or form a bad thing. It was very poppy and you kind of had that like, oh yeah, we're playing a game, kind of like that kind of vibe, like it was and like it felt like this like pop punky kind of thing.
Rolling around.
Yeah, exactly. And like I thought it was cool. It was like it was very fun. It's not. It. They don't. They do a good job of not making it like the whole game, right?
Yeah.
I think when you're actually playing the tower defense part, they tone it down a little bit, make it a little bit more like kind of not ambient, but like in a way like the kind of music that you expect like when you're like getting into strategy mode in a way.
Yeah. That focus music.
Yeah, and the sound
Yeah.
effects were great too in terms of like how it sounded when you were upgrading a tower or when you smashed a robot or you get ate by the Venus flytrap and it sounded like it
Yeah.
felt very cartoony, very video gamey, right? This is like it seems like a really cheap way to describe sounds, but like it felt like no, this is arcade game. It sounds very arcade gamey, video gamey, or whatever. And
Yeah.
it was silly and fun, and it matched the vibe, just like the visuals. It definitely brought it all together because I think you can go a lot of different directions with the music for this because it's definitely not going to be the star of the show ever, especially with the tower defense game. And it showed to me that they set out and said, we want this vibe and we're gonna bring it together. This makes sense with the cutscenes. This makes sense with the gameplay. It was a really really like fun way to do it, and it felt very nostalgic, which I enjoyed. What about yourself?
Yeah. I feel like almost every time you like pass it over to me, I'm like, yeah. So I gotta figure out a new thing to say. Um, all right.
Okay.
But no, yeah, I actually wrote down music is pop punk. Because it's exactly what it is. I was thinking of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and just pop punk in general. You don't really hear it in a lot of games, I feel like these days. Maybe like I was also thinking maybe like Tony Hawk esque, sort of in a way. That's a little bit more can be more grungy than pop punk y. But yeah, that's definitely soundtrack. It does a good job. And I do think it would be kind of cool if it was playing during some of the tower defense stuff or like when things got really intense maybe or something like that. But I didn't mind that it wasn't super present during when you were actually playing. As far as like the sound effects go, you mentioned that it's very video gamey, right? And like we're saying obviously that's not a bad thing. I just want to like emphasize that because sound can really destroy a game if every other thing is really good and the sound is terrible. It really can kind of ruin your opinion on a game if like this you just can't deal with the sound, or like it just sounds ridiculous. So the fact that this is like kind of exactly what you expect going in sound effect wise is a great thing. They were able to nail that down, and it's not going to wow you like you said. It's not going to blow you away, but it's exactly kind of what you think it should be. So yeah, everything from the way some of the bots sound with like the electricity, the way like there's one of the bots that comes in is like a stereo system, and like they kind of push you away. They're very annoying.
Yeah.
They push you away, and they kind of give you like a little boom like sound when they're doing that. And then even when I really did like when like we beat a level and the EMP goes off. It's kind of like a boom like sound, and everything kind of freezes. So I thought that was cool. That was well done. But yeah, it's kind of it's almost like if you watch this game without audio, you would know exactly what it sounds like. Like that's just it's metal sounding, and not metal the music, just there's bots and you're hitting bots a lot, so it sounds a lot like metal. And then the pop punk track that's kind of behind everything. So yeah, overall, I say the music was overall pretty positive for me. Nothing too glaring, anything like that. So yeah, I liked it a lot. Now I know. Did you have any more thoughts on the music or the sound?
Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, it is pop punky. It reminded me of Sonic Adventure Battle 2. It reminded me of
Yeah.
like anime outros, like
Yeah.
like kind of
Yeah.
like that, like hit like fast, like very major key riffs,
Yeah.
which was fun. But yeah, in terms of performance, we both played on the Switch, or not the Switch. We both played on Steam. I didn't notice anything the whole time I played. Yourself?
Yeah, no, ran well for me. And I know we both use controller as well, and that worked pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
performance wise. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I imagine sometimes with tower defense games, performance might not be that great, just because you are dealing with a lot on the screen at one time, depending on kind of what it is. So definitely a positive, I would say that this game we didn't have any issues whatsoever. And I'm pretty confident that this game would run well on the Switch as well, which is kind of the bottom tier, right? That like people would kind of consider. So yeah, no issues with performance for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is the time where we give this fresh squeeze a fresh rating. Our rating system goes from here's from best to worst. You got your certified fresh juice. It's your best games, your game of the year contenders. These like classics, we would call them. Your Stardew Valleys, I think would be a great example.
Yeah.
A steal. This is a game that's good. Get it for the price. You're going to really enjoy it. It's not the greatest game in the world, but it's still very good. It's a game that we really recommend. Next, we would get on sale. We have lots of sales in indie games and video games in general. So whether it's Steam Summer Sale or something else like that, definitely check it out. Right, it was a good game, but maybe a little bit too expensive for what you're getting out of it. And then beyond that, you have Manager Special. So if it goes on a deep sale, like where it's almost free, I would then recommend it to you. Now, we haven't done any free to play games, and we probably will at some point. We'll have to change the way we do these ratings for them, or at least it still explains how good the game is. And then finally, Spoiled Milk, which nobody wants. These are the worst games. We have not played one yet. I don't think, unless, I don't think based on how we've reviewed this game, either of us are on Spoiled Milk for this game. So with that being said, what is your rating for this game, Bish Bash Bots?
Yeah. So for Bish Bash Bots, I'm gonna give it a get on sale, which seems to be what I give most games. But for this one in particular, it is a $20 game. And I know I mentioned earlier that, I would love to see it on mobile. And I was trying to think, what would I pay for it if it was on mobile? Because that kind of changes the way you think about pricing in general. I feel like a lot of mobile games are cheaper than, even like some of the cheaper Steam games that come out these days. So I was thinking $5. That might be fair on the mobile platform. Maybe it's not the full game, or whatever, they had to make some compromises. As far as like on Steam, I could see maybe paying up to $10 for this game, just based on like what we played. Now, if you're really into tower defense games, you might be willing to shell out 20 without any issue. But for me personally, I'm just thinking that this is more of a get on sale game, and I'm sure that this game will go on sale during some of the Steam sales. It seems like that would be a great opportunity for them, especially to kind of compete with some of the larger tower defense games that are out there. So, yeah, for me, it's a get on sale. But Tommy, what are you thinking?
I'm right there with you. I'm gonna get on sale as well. Now there are some caveats there. I think that if you are a tower defense like fanatic and you want to kind of try something that feels pretty unique, right? Like maybe you're feeling a little stale on tower defense, I would check it out, right? I think it ends up being a steal for you. The reason I'm giving it a get on sale is because I imagine this will live on your Switch, right? Right, for when you're around some friends. Now, that would depend on how often you're going to be around friends. Then do you want to just spend $20 right away and then wait until you're around some friends to play, some couch co-op, you might be. But I think probably the $10 to $15 range, just get it on Switch next time you're with friends, or if you just get it on Steam and you play online a lot with your buddies, I think that's a great option too. But I don't think more than $15, it would be. Now, I mean, this is just a rating. If you feel like this is a game that you want to spend the money, I would, right? That's totally fine. But in terms of like how I would view this game, because you're not going to get a lot out of it solo. So already you're in a position where you want to play it when other people are able to play it. So you can't do that all the time because we're adults and whatever. I think it's also probably, a great option if like you have a family, you got some kids that maybe are of like, probably like 8, 9, or 10. They probably love the hell out of this game. So you play with them. If you're into tower defense, you want to introduce them to tower defense because I think it is a nice little bit of a like a gateway drug to tower defense. Maybe that is kid friendly and can be a lot of fun to play with them. So
it's your kid friendly gateway drug.
It's we're working on it. But I think get on sale is a very fair. It's a very strong get on sale, I would say, because I think you will get the value out of it if you get it on sale. So
yeah,
that's where we're at. Bish Bash Bots. It was fun. Thank you for the keys. We appreciated them.
Yes.
And we did have a lot of fun with it playing together. Now we have some listener questions. The first one comes from a bud of mine, a reoccurring guest on my other show, Fresh and Buds. Dead Summer Art, Kale, his name, all the way from Down Under. Who asked, do you think that indie games are held back by their pixel art style? It is obvious that devs use this style a lot because of its accessibility to create and use. But do you think that it is a trap that many fall into that doesn't force them to think outside of the box? This is a great question. I'm interested to hear your answer first, Matty.
Yeah, no, this is a really great question. So answering kind of like, the first part, do you think that indie games are held back by their pixel art style? Face value, I'm going to say no, just because I feel like we've seen so much variety in indie games with that pixel art style. We were just talking a few episodes ago even about a 3D game that is in the works, that is in that 2D kind of pixel art style. We've seen other kind of 3D games, and I feel like these days pixel art style can also mean a lot of different things. You kind of have, is it 2D pixel art style? Is it more like the Minecrafty kind of like those are technically kind of looking like pixels? But I'm thinking it's more on the 2D side is what they're asking here. So I would say no, though, overall. I just maybe in the earlier days of like indie games or like, maybe even just a few years ago, I would have had a different answer, but I don't think that they are. And then you're asking, like, do you think it's a trap that many fall into that doesn't force them to think outside the box? I actually kind of think that it does force them to think outside the box. I think that a lot of times just in life in general, right, is like the restrictions that you have on something or yourself, kind of forces you to try to think creatively. So I think, like we saw, I was just talking about, I forget what the game is called. I think it's called Sword Hero maybe, but that game that's 3-dimensional, but it's kind of using 2D pixel art for everything. That was a perfect example, I think, of like that developer trying to think outside the box, and they ended up coming up with something really great. So I almost feel like if they didn't, if indie games were using, I mean, they do use more than pixel art, but like if they were, it was even across the board, right? Like there was no favorited art style. I feel like we would be getting less original games than when devs kind of lean into the pixel art style. So yeah, great question though. Really, really great question, and definitely had me thinking a bit before the show about like how I would answer this. So Tommy, I want to know, what are you thinking about this? You love the pixel art style.
I really do. Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts here.
I mean, I'm wearing a pixel art Swamp Thing shirt right now.
There you
for
go.
the YouTube viewers and all the Spotify listeners at home. I don't think it holds them back. I'm with you there, and I admittedly don't know a lot about video game development and what's hard and what's easy. So based on my perceived kind of knowledge of pixel art and regular video games, I feel like there's a lot of programs that like help these 3D model games, maybe. And I feel like my perceived idea of what pixel art is, it feels like maybe you are taking a little bit more time into the nitty gritty of the details. Now, there's some examples of like just sprites being used that like just kind of do the same thing over and over. But if you look at a game like Axiom Verge, right? Mm-hmm. That is, I mean, arguably a masterpiece, all pixel art, super in depth. And I think if it was the easiest thing to use, we would see a lot more of it just like in your day to day, like on your like the app store, right? I think you see some sprite stuff happening, but I think the almost more common thing you see is it's almost like the flash art kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think that is more the kind of not lazy, but like it's like the easier way to get into game making. But I could definitely understand the idea that maybe it can be a trap, because sometimes you're just like, I'm gonna make this like really really cool pixel art game, right?
Yeah,
and that's what I want to do. Where because you got into that mindset, you didn't realize that maybe it would have been better as a different kind of art style, or whatever graphic style. So great question, Dead Summer. Check out Dead Summer Art's YouTube if you ever want to check out some lore. He is a lore expert in Flesh and Blood, the game that I play, and you might hear a familiar voice doing some voiceovers on a couple of his videos.
Ooh.
Just killed it over here. Next question comes from Astro Xenos. What makes up a great indie game?
Yeah, so great question. I know we have talked about this a bit before, and actually, like last week, we one of the questions was asking about particular parts of like an indie game, like gameplay, story, art, those sort of things. It's kind of what we talk about in our main squeeze. But what makes up a great indie game? I think kind of even just looking outside the game is a really great studio. Some of the best indie games I've ever played are from studios of like 5 or less people or 10 or less people. So I really think that that does really help kind of put the love and the care into like what makes a great indie game. And I feel like, a main reason that people love indie games and like a main reason at PAX East that we love to hang out in the indie game section, it's not because really of like the types of games that are there. Like we never know the types of games that will be there, but it's really just because we know that those games are being cared for more than some other games that are probably larger, that have executives and some greed behind them and things like that. Not saying that those developers don't work hard, but it's just something special when you have like a really small indie studio that's putting their heart and soul into a game, hoping, spending every last dime, hoping that like it's going to work out for them. So I think like kind of changing this question a little bit is like, I think what makes up a great indie game is a great indie studio, without having to get into like the specifics about gameplay and all that stuff that we normally talk about. But that would be kind of my answer with this one, Tommy. I know it's an open-ended question, so I'd love to see where you take it.
Well, you're wrong. No,
Oh, okay.
no,
Good.
I'm kidding.
Good. Well, I'm done.
No, I would say, along the same lines as you, I think it needs to exude the independent spirit, I think and that you can definitely feel from a great studio that is doing it for the love of the game. Maybe they're not going to make a lot of money. Maybe they will, but they're doing it for the love of the. If you could feel that this game was made to like actually just bring an idea to fruition and not just a product for you to buy, right?
Yeah.
This is why we love, great great beer, great wine, or whatever. Like, we want something that, like, this is all about putting out a great thing that we had an idea about and we wanted to put it out into the world. And I think that's what makes a great indie game.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you could tell sometimes when it just feels like, no, we're just trying to make some money because we're on a trend or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We got to make money. It's like it costs to live. But yeah, great question, AstroZenos. And then one more question from Capolo, who actually I'm going to be recording my other show with in a few hours here.
Busy man.
Busy man. We call him the Swiss Prophet. He's prophesized many things. He also has a YouTube channel. Go check it out. What's the upper price point you expect indie games to have? Which I thought was a great question. Do you have an idea here?
Yeah, no, definitely another banger question coming in from the listeners. We appreciate it. So the upper price point you expect indie games to have. So for me, I actually don't expect anything price wise, and I think that's what makes like this show in particular like very interesting is that we're getting all these games at these kind of different price points, and sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not worth it. And I really think like I would never expect an indie game to be more than $70 because that's what games are these days, unfortunately. But I would never expect it to be more than that. But if it was priced like a AAA game at $70, I would expect a lot from that indie game. I've been playing like, for example, like Return to Moria, which is the Lord of the Rings IP. It's a $40 game on the Epic Store. And a lot of people had an issue with that price. But, what I'm thinking is that, regardless of how many hours of gameplay I'm going to get out of it, it's the Lord of the Rings IP. So it's going to be priced a little higher. And it is technically an indie studio that's making the game. So it kind of does still fit in the indie genre. So I didn't have any problem paying for it because I knew why I was paying a little bit more. But even then, like $40 seemed like more to me than what I usually spend on an indie game. But it's not like I was expecting, I wasn't expecting a Lord of the Rings game to be $20. It just, so it varies on like the type of game. But I will say, I expect more from the game the higher the price is, which I think is kind of the theme with a lot of people, right? I expect more replay value. I expect a deeper story. Everything. I expect a certified fresh juice. If I'm gonna pay $70 or like a AAA game, I expect a certified fresh juice rating on that game. If it's anything less than that, how could it be a steal, right? How if it's priced like a AAA game? So anyway, that's a great question, and I think a lot of people are going to have different answers to this, but that's just kind of how I'm feeling about it.
Yeah, it is tough to kind of put like a real upper price point on indie games. I don't know if we really see many $70 indie games, but if there was one, I would treat it just like I would a AAA game. I'm like, this better be $70 worth. Like that's just what it is. Like I don't care. Even if it is like an indie game and like the indie spirit. If this game, which we enjoyed, or Leica, which I gave a certified fresh juice last week, I think there might be a world where I would have paid $70 for that game, after I played it already. But I expect that level of kind of in depth and amount of gameplay and like a really rewarding experience. So. But if I were to put a real number, I don't think more than 40 is what I think people expect. And I don't think we really see that ever. I would say $30 is usually what we see, maybe 35. But at the top point. And I think it's fair because you know what? These indie studios still have to make money. So like I totally understand. So but yeah, great question, Cap. Appreciate you.
I actually, and just like adding on to that too, I think nowadays, like if we're talking about like what does like the general like gaming population expect when it comes to indie games, price points, they're definitely expecting more from the game, and I think it's because a lot of AAA games over the years have still charge their premium price, but not delivered on that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's put a bad taste in people's mouth in general with gaming and the way that things are priced. So I think, for an indie game, I do agree. Like, I think that, general kind of gaming people will not want to pay more than $40 for an indie game. And I think that mostly they're probably looking around like the $20 to $30 range for most indie games. But I do think that, if you are going to charge $40 or even 30, a lot of people are looking under these games with like a bigger microscope than they ever have because of all these pricing issues and all those loot boxes and a microtransaction, all
Mm-hmm.
that sort of stuff that's happened with those AAA games, and it has leaked into indie games for some of them. So I think people are just very like defensive, and they just want to make sure that these indie games are going to remain at indie pricing going forward. So yeah, no, really, just great questions this week, folks. Just killer questions.
Yeah, and if you want to ask any, you can leave them in the comments. You can reach out to us individually, however you want. I think even on Spotify we have a kind of like a spot you can do it as well.
Yep.
And yeah, no, absolutely. And this brings us to the last segment of the show, which we call the Rec Room, where we recommend something. I'll fire us off here because I have like an interesting recommendation here. I have a TikTok account that I particularly enjoy. It's called Pura Arte, which is I think translated to pure art. So it's Pura space ARTE. This is an account that basically just posts like little slideshows of like relatively unknown artists, and it's some of the coolest art I've ever seen, which is like really cool. Because like on TikTok I get like a lot of these like slideshows of like AI art made with Midjourney and stuff like that with like whatever, and like at first it's pretty cool, and then you realize it's like, oh, it's pretty much always kind of a similar thing. So if you're ever, because like AI art pulls from real art, right? Like it and whatever. So if you ever watch like the AI art stuff and you're like, what is this pulling from? Go to that TikTok account, Pura Arte, where you can just see the coolest stuff, and you're like, oh, a real person did that, and that's what's inspiring all this other stuff, which is really really neat. And there's I've found like artists that I would have never found otherwise, and it's really really neat. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at it right now. I was just laughing a little bit because when I looked it up, it was like someone walking their dog. I was like on the wrong channel. But yeah, I typed it in the TikTok search bar instead of Google, and I found it right away. But yeah, it looks really awesome, and it actually like it looks like AI art, which makes sense because that's what AI is pulling from.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's learning the styles and where to place things and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this is a really cool account. I'll definitely check it out. But yeah, for me, for my rec room for the week, it's actually a food item that I haven't had before in my rec room, and it is from Trader Joe's. So if you know Trader Joe's, the grocery store or whatever you want to call it, they are selling this time of year. It's called Mini Gingerbread People. Okay. Now, I know it sounds like ridiculous or whatever, and you can probably envision what it is. They're little tiny cookies that are gingerbread cookies that have bits of like actual ginger in them, which is like, it's like a chewy ginger. And then on the backside, they are vanilla frosted, a little bit of vanilla frosting. And I got to tell you, they're great. They got a nice snap to them. They got a nice bite of the ginger. I'm a big fan of ginger snaps and ginger cookies and really a lot of ginger flavored stuff. Ginger ale. These cookies are fantastic. So if you have a Trader Joe's near, or if just any grocery store near you, you should just go pick up some gingerbread cookies because they're just great. But these ones in particular, called Mini Gingerbread People, I have just been enjoying. And the box, there's like 100 of them in there. Like it's not one of those situations where like you're getting a box and like half of it's empty already. It's like, no, they come packed in. So shout out to Maria for bringing those home. Did not even ask her for them. Just saw them, ate them, loved them. So
Hell yeah. That sounds actually really, really good. and
Yeah.
I'm now hungry. Well, that's gonna do it for the show. This was fun. I liked, this is like a new genre we explored, and we're gonna continue to explore more genres. Eventually, we'll hit them all, and eventually we'll get some different amalgamations of different ones as well. But what do you need to plug here, Matthew?
Yeah, so if you guys want to follow me outside of the podcast, at Matty Gorm on all my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that sort of stuff, YouTube. And then if you want to follow the podcast on anything, at Fresh Juice Pod on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube. Definitely go check us out. Give us a rating on there as well. That'd be great. It helps with the algorithm, all the the complicated stuff these days you need to try to be famous. So now, yeah. So if you want to follow me, that's where you can do it. I also have been wanting to stream a bit more, so you might catch me over on Twitch every now and then, playing Return to Moria actually. So that's what I've been doing lately. It's been a great time. So, yeah. That's where you can follow me. But Tommy, where can they find you? You keep mentioning this other podcast you're on. Where can they find that too?
I have another podcast called Fresh and Buds where I talk about a really cool indie, I think you can call it indie trading card game called Flesh and Blood, which is really, really fun. I would call it the Dark Souls of trading card games. If that interests you, go check out the game and check out my podcast where I have a little bit more of a casual vibe. I talk about some competitive stuff, but I talk to people from all over the community, including Dead Summer Art, who asked a question. He's my lore guy. I bring him on before every set, and we talk about all the lore from whatever the set is coming out, which is a lot of fun, as well as some other great guests, such as Coppola, who's also asked a question. And you can find me at Fresh Buds Pod. And yeah, follow the podcast socials and stuff like that. Please comment, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. This is a free show, and that's all we ask for is your love and support. And for each subscriber, I put 1 penny in a jar, and at the end of the day, however many subscribers you got, I take all those pennies. And I go down to the market and I buy a few things. So think about that.
Maybe that's his dinner money.
That's my dinner. Right? That's my dinner money.
So
I own the pennies already, but so I'm not making pennies. I'm just allocating them. So
it's a new diet, plan. It's like it's based on the love of listeners. Listener love diet. Check it out. ListenerLove.com.
Check it out. I'm publishing my cookbook soon. So thank you, everybody. Please stay fresh and stay juicy. We love you, and see you next week.